3 of them.
This is a new book, son.
Wait, what's it called?
The title of this book is called Children of War
Yeah,
by
I've read
Deborah
that.
Ellis. But this one is the voices of the Iraqi refugees, the little kids from Iraq that survived after the war.
Okay.
It's not about the soldiers, children of the United States, the children.
Where'd you get the book?
I have it in the bag right next to you. I'm going to return it to the library. I wasn't going to continue reading it because
You need my library card for that, you know.
to return it.
Oh, wait, no, never mind.
In 1980, Iraq bombed Iran, launching an 8-year war. All right. Which more than 1 million people died. Saddam invaded neighboring Kuwait in 1990, leading to the first Gulf War, in which a coalition led by the United States and sanctioned by the United Nations drove him back into Iraq. Saddam from Iraq used chemical weapons against his enemies and even against his own people, the Kurds. Now, the Kurds and the Sunnis, they are different, right? One of the differences is, I think, their religion. I think that Saddam Hussein was a Sunni, so he didn't like the Kurds. And at one time, it appeared that he was trying to develop atomic weapons and other weapons of mass destruction. After the First Gulf War, the United Nations, as part of the peace agreement, was allowed to send in weapons inspectors to search for and destroy these weapons of mass destruction. Saddam did not cooperate with these inspections and made life very difficult for the inspectors. But in the end, there was general agreement that the great majority of the weapons, labs, and other materials needed to build such weapons had been found, removed, and destroyed. Then came the attacks on the Pentagon and the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. This is a question, son. Should different countries have atomic weapons?
Sure, we have them.
We have them. The Russians have them. We have
The
them.
French, no?
Maybe the French, maybe the British,
Maybe the Italians.
but the Arabs, I don't know. Then came the attacks on the Pentagon. What is the Pentagon?
A jail. A huge jail.
No, it isn't. It is a
Oh.
place where the military soldiers of the United States have meetings.
I thought it was a jail because in X-Men, the Pentagon is a jail for mutants.
Oh, then that's what they have converted it into. You see, the Pentagon is. I got to go on a 3-day trip to Washington D.C. So apparently the Pentagon is somewhere like near the White House. But we didn't go to the White House because there was a lot of traffic over there. You know, even when I was a kid. All right. So we were selected to be high school student ambassadors and go visit the Pentagon, but I didn't know what the Pentagon was. It was just a place with a bunch of soldiers, but soldiers dressed in nice uniforms, you know. Not the green stuff, but the dress uniforms. Then came the attacks on the Pentagon and the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. Although none of the organizers or attackers were from Iraq, the government of George W. Bush was convinced that Iraq was still harboring weapons of mass destruction. They also made the claim, for which no proof has ever been provided, that Saddam Hussein had links to the September 11 attacks. In addition, the Bush government claimed that a war to eliminate Saddam would bring democracy to the Middle East. What is democracy, son?
Like voting?
Yes, people would vote. Democracy would be not a dictatorship. A dictatorship is one ruler, or it could be a couple of rulers, but usually they say dictatorship is for one. A democracy, you could buy things, you could sell things, you could travel, you could buy things. Over there in the Middle East, I think they have the problem with religions. The three main religions: Christian, Muslim, and Jewish. Despite worldwide opposition, and obviously a whole bunch of other religions too that I don't know anything about, Sunnis, Kurds. Despite worldwide opposition from countries normally allied with the United States, and despite not being able to win support from the United Nations, the United States, Great Britain, Australia, and some smaller countries formed what was called the Coalition of the Willing and invaded Iraq in March 2003, bombing Baghdad and launching the Second Gulf War. They did this against the principles embodied in the United Nations Charter. It was, in effect, an illegal war. Saddam Hussein was overthrown quite quickly after massive bombing raids on cities where millions of people lived, and the country was occupied. No weapons of mass destruction were ever found. The fall of Saddam resulted in new waves of sectarian violence, as various groups inside the country continued to fight for power. At the time of this writing, there were still foreign troops, mainly American forces, in Iraq, and the country had fallen into what some are calling a civil war. What is a civil war, son? You see, a civil war is when people in one country, like the United States, had a civil war about slavery. But other countries, Iraq, had another civil war. Some like the United States and they want democracy. And some of those people, they don't like the United States because the United States bombed their cities. The children in this book are mostly refugees who fled Iraq because of the war and were living in Jordan in the fall of 2007. They represent only a tiny number of those whose lives have been deeply impacted, now and forever, by the American decision to invade their country. Now, I don't like it when they say American decision because there are a bunch of countries in the Americas. But since the United States is one of the American countries, many people now believe that America is the only one. But there's Canada, Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua. All of these are American countries. You know who knew about it? The Canadians. When I went to Canada one time to visit Niagara Falls, everybody in the van, all the tourists, they were asking us, "Are you a U.S. citizen?" "I'm an American." And then, "What is your citizenship?" To the next one. "I'm an American." Finally, after the third one, the guard stopped and he said, "Please don't say you're an American. Please say the name of the country that you are a citizen of." He corrected everybody. And then the next person was, "I'm from the United States." "I'm from the United States of America," the next one. And then finally somebody said, "USA." And then they said, "USA." And then when it was my turn, "USA." They didn't check any papers. They just let us in. I was maybe 9, 10, 11 years old. 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. 11, 12, 13.
What's Niagara Falls like?
Niagara Falls was a place that even I as a child said, "What are those boats doing down there?" Because, you know, they had to climb up higher so we can look down the falls, all right? And then when we see these boats with tourists, they're all wearing yellow things for raincoats. There was a red boat and there was a yellow boat. The boats were the same color. The people there were so many people on the deck, all right? They're tourists. And they would approach the part of the water that falls down.
The waterfall.
The waterfall. And then the boats would go back against the waterfall. Even I, as a kid, was thinking, those people shouldn't be on those boats. What if they fall over the waterfall?
I've heard there's like at the very bottom, there's like calm lake, sort of, with the waterfall and
Mm-hmm.
and people swimming there.
Oh, it's probably a beautiful place then for that. I would like to visit that part, not the top part. Well, if I go in the water, that is. But you can hear it. It's a loud thing, and you can get wet.